Yo, welcome to Pitchport. I'm Mario.
And Amilcar. How you doing today, Mario? How you feeling?
I'm feeling okay. I mean, which one? But uh, I guess starting with the Mexico one, I'm okay. We'll get into it later. But I have peace so far. I am sad that it's over. But glad it happened, as they say.
There you go. That's the best way. I was telling you earlier. I was like, I feel like we had a weekend away, and we like lost, or at least I lost my voice. I'm still trying to, yeah, trying to gather my voice. So if my voice sounds crazy, I've been doing all the teas and the cough drops and everything to try to regain my voice. But it was like the weekend and then the game today. So I feel like it's just continuously going downhill. At least for my voice, it is.
Yeah, recovery starts July 19th. Hopefully for you, actually, no, it might take a few more days if Spain continues on their run.
Exactly right. Yeah. But like you said, let's jump into a little bit. Obviously, we have the somber news of Mexico, crashing out of the World Cup in the round of 30. No,
16,
round 16.
Yeah.
Round of 16, sorry. Round of 16. This is obviously what was the game. I think we talked a little bit over the weekend how you can argue that this is kind of the game where Mexico had been kind of stuck at, right? Like obviously the knockouts, but we added another round this year, which Mexico got through, and this was kind of the game, like beating that big team in the World Cup, and obviously in Estadio Azteca this time. I guess before we start on your feelings, like how was the game for you? Like did you like see the fans, the environment? How was all that?
Yeah, the game was good. I all in all, I'm happy with the performance Mexico put. They made it interesting. They made it exciting. It wasn't like those games where we were down the whole game, but it wasn't like those games where you're down and you just don't see where it's going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
That there's just like really no realistic feeling that you can actually get back into the game. And Mexico showed a lot of fight. They went down 2-0 and then they scored. They equalized pretty soon after, like they went down to 0, which was huge. It really like just showed like, okay, this team's got some fight in it. They're still in it. And they very much felt that way. They went down 3-1 and then they got a penalty in their favor, 3-2. So they definitely stayed in it. And then you get to a point where there's about 70, you're like in the 70th minute. So you have about 25 minutes at least, including extra time, to get a third goal. And it really felt like, all right, we got this. Like we have a chance to make it happen. Ultimately it didn't, and that's where you start thinking they kind of tried to create the same play over and over on the left side. They're trying to center it in and get a header. Javier Aguirre made substitutions to go for a little bit more height to really like try to get that play. And that's where I feel like, okay, it's not working after 5, 10, 15 minutes. Let's try to get some variety. Let's diversify a little bit. So it would have, obviously, there's things that would have been nice to have go differently to get the score we want. But ultimately, considering that we lost 3-2 against a team ranked 4th in the world, a team that I think could potentially go all the way. England fans think it's coming home. They always do, but this time it looks like it actually might. So all in all, I can say like, okay, we lost, but we lost to a very good team and we had fight in us. We had mistakes. Javier Aguirre, the Mexico coach, said before the game, like this will be determined by whoever messes up first. And in this case, Mexico messed up first and twice, to be honest, with their defense. But overall, I'm happy with it.
Okay.
As a neutral, how was it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna be like, something you touched on is refereeing, and I've seen a lot of back and forth on the refereeing. What were your thoughts on the red card, the penalties on both sides, and the refereeing just in general?
I mean, I'm a little bit biased though, but I will say at the end of it did feel in this game like Mexico had favorable calls. It did feel like we were having just things go our way more than average. There's games where you feel like, oh, we didn't get calls go our way.
Yeah,
I didn't leave this game thinking that was the case. So if anything, it adds more credit to England. They came to Azteca where they talked about the altitude. They had a day less to recover because they played a day after we did. The Mexico fans made them a visit to sing them some songs at night. Then they played with 10 men down, and so they ended up still doing a good job. I could see the grounds for the penalty in favor for Mexico. Why it was called the penalty? There was contact, but it's a play that could very easily have been not called the penalty, and I would have been like, okay, I get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the tough part. And I think that's been one of the biggest I'm not gonna say complaints, but one of the biggest things that have come up is VAR and like how does something look in real time versus something being looked at, in slow motion, and how usually it exacerbates it. It makes it almost always, I would say, venture to say, it almost always looks worse when it's in slow
Absolutely.
motion. And then you wonder, well, what does it matter whether it's slow motion or the play of the game and all that stuff. And I feel like there's been a lot of controversy. Do you see this like changing the VAR, like the way they make those kind of judgment calls changing at all based off, I guess you can like a lot of the decisions that have been made?
I think it comes down to philosophy. I mean, the technology's there. It's only going to get better, but it's more how are we interpreting the technology. For me, I think the most blatant times where it looks worse than it actually is actually usually during handballs in the area, because it's really hard to judge intent. And sometimes, yeah, the hand, like with one frame, it looks like, okay, you like basically just stop the ball with your hand or something like
Yeah.
that. But in a really small movement, sometimes your hand's just like in transition, and it's a natural human movement of playing the game where it slightly touches you. I think some of the like penalties or red cards, or would have been red cards, like Messi, for example, or I'm sure we'll talk about Polygon in a little bit. Those can be a little bit harder to interpret, but it's going to be what's the general philosophy, and it seems that there's not a very specific way how it's being applied, and then the inconsistency is what really, I would assume, gets people upset. Like, because if you see it go one way for one team, you expect it to go to the other team the same way as well,
Yeah.
even if it's not to your favor or it kind of sucks. At least it's sucking to both sides in that regard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that second point. I think all you want it, like call it however you're going to call it, fine, but just call it consistent, right? And the hard part is even within a game, there's so much up and down of what is a foul, even what's not a foul. Like I think we can probably agree that this World Cup has been the most physical soccer I've ever seen. I've never seen teams just be able to
France,
just like
France is saying, yeah.
yeah, right. France and
Yeah.
like the Uruguay match with
Yeah.
Spain, like it's like some of this is like a wrestling match. I mean, the France one, maybe we'll talk about, but that was just like it was. You're not even playing soccer at this point.
Yeah.
You're just like trying to beat them up, trying to like instigate, trying to get Mbappe, trying to get a red card, and that way you're up 10 men and doing that. So people can disagree on whether or not that's a good tactic or not when that's what you got to go for. But yeah, like I said, all you want is consistency and just play the match the same way. But it's hard to say, well, last match I was able to bump in, I was able to do this, and now this match, okay, we got to adjust, and even the adjustment doesn't even allow it to be made because during the whole game it's very different. Are they going to slow mo this? Are they not going to slow mo this? I think that's why we've seen so many red cards.
Yeah, and to that point too, for like the game, a lot of times what happens to a game, you show up and within the first few minutes you see, okay, what does the other team have? How's our team looking right now? How are we feeling? But the third variable is like, okay, how's the ref?
Yeah.
It's almost becoming like a not a Venn diagram, but like a third circle in like those
Yeah, I
diagrams,
know what you're talking about.
essentially,
Yeah.
like of what's going to ultimately impact the game.
Yeah. And if we let's jump back into the game a little bit, I guess something we talked about last podcast, which I know we haven't posted yet, and it's on me. We had a lot of technical issues trying to
Yeah.
trying to post it and I'm trying to learn how to post all this stuff. So we will post it right before this episode because Mario's going to help out and do it like as he's been doing the whole time. But one thing we talked about was wow, I just totally lost my train of thought.
Uh,
them not being scored on the entire match or the entire World Cup, right? And how they were going to react. What do you think about that second goal that happened within, I don't know, 30 seconds, 40 seconds after that? Do you think that was kind of what we were talking about, a little bit of, oh shoot, like kind of shell shock and being stuck? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Dude, one of the first thoughts that came to my mind was basically what you
Yeah, like I
said. Like,
jinxed him. Amilcar
yeah, no,
jinxed
no,
it.
no, not jinx it. No, this was something that was going to happen. There's no way that expected us to hold down um, England or like a Harry Kane, like a Jude Bellingham. Like, no way. It was going to happen. So how we responded was going to be really important. What could have happened was we score first and then they score, so we're not down. But ultimately, it was, I think Mexico responded well. They were just unfocused for that span of time, essentially. And that's what, unfortunately, a lot of times you catch a break where, yeah, you score one and then the next one, it like just hits the post. And there was some that hit the post actually a few minutes after that. So they were a little shaky during that time period. I was happy though to see Quinones score before we went to the half. So that's kind of what at least gave me like, I felt like the team had a fight. They always stayed in it, like whether they created plays or they generated penalties, whatever it was, they were able to stay in it. But it was unfortunate. It happened to Gilberto Mora, who's been like a young star of the team. He loses the ball in the midfield, and when you play with these amazing teams, like you just really can't afford to make a lot of those mistakes.
Yeah, and like you said, like it's really just who messes up and then momentum. Well, the one thing that at that end of the first half almost felt like Mexico just you did never wanted it to end, right? Because it was just like
Yeah.
attack after attack after attack. You're like it's gonna come, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they got that goal, but they were pushing so hard. And I feel like we talked a little bit about the altitude in the stadium, and I think it was so evident at the end of the first half and at the end of the game, right? Like, and that's when there was no breaks. Like everyone was just exhausted. And I think I was kind of watching Jude Bellingham towards the end of the game.
Oh,
He couldn't even run.
he was
Like
slouching out between plays. He was
yeah,
like
and he was kind of
catching his
jogging
breath. Yeah.
barely to each thing. And then when the game was over, he just fell. Like I mean, he played an insane
Yeah.
game, but that just went to show the exhaustion and how Mexico seemed like they had more life in their legs than England did. So that's why I think capitalizing those last maybe 15 minutes of the first half was huge. And I really also think towards the end of that, I think it was one of those where you're like, dude, the ball's just not going in. But like Mexico was completely dominating that game. It almost, and I saw someone talking about this today, it was almost worse off for England to go down 10 men because then they just sat back. Whereas like the game was much more open because they were trying to attack. They were going for that third, fourth, whatever goal. They kept pushing. And when they went down to 10 men, boom, they just sat back, put their 6'5" guys in there, and they were just heading everything out. Did you feel like that it changed a little bit after the red card?
Absolutely. They all of them dropped back. And what surprised me too was to the extent that they did. There was chances where I felt like they could have even tried to play the ball out more and then build a play and try to obviously score or even like counter. And they were more than happy to just clear it and let us do it all over again. It was like they were running drills essentially. And to their credit, they held Mexico off. And talking about like a critique for Mexico, I just wish they would have had a little bit more variety at that point. They kept trying to do the same thing and it didn't work. They would play it to Piojo Alvarado on the right side. He would try to center it. Nothing would happen. So it was unfortunate. But England played a great game. Like they went out and they had to grind out a really hard win coming to Azteca. Like it was insane. And you could even see it during the anthems. Like see it in Mexico, obviously super hyped. Even like the England fans, at least my interpretation was that they were like, wow, this is crazy. Like this is a scene. And I want to think as you have a long soccer career, especially a lot of the England players based in Europe, you get to play at a lot of iconic venues, mostly in Europe or whatever countries you play in, like World Cups. And I would think this is going to be a really nice memory for them, just being able to like be at this like iconic like Latin American like soccer venue. But props to them. They were a good team and they grinded out a good win.
So to put a bow on this one and wrap it up, what do you see? Like, what do you like that happened during this World Cup run? Where do you see kind of at least really raw and like just what do you see going forward? Like from the team and next World Cup, next Copa America, all that stuff. What are your thoughts?
Despite getting essentially the average result for Mexico, which is usually loose in the round of 16, so we haven't taken that step forward, but it looks like there's a good foundation there to build around. You have a lot of really young, promising talent and talent that doesn't seem to be intimidated by the stage that they're in. They were in a huge stage. Gilberto Mora, Hormiga, Mateo Chavez, and they played really well. They played with a lot of confidence. So the foundation's there. Now it'll be very telling on how it builds from there. We've seen like other teams that have golden generations and it just doesn't seem to like come together. Mexico had a few World Cup cycles ago where they had mostly all European players and they still haven't made the jump. We'll talk about it soon, but like the US still hasn't made quite that jump that other teams have done. So it'll be telling. Copa America. I actually leave excited. Like this team was good. I really enjoyed it. This was a team that I think they played good soccer. They were competitive, and I actually thought we had a really good chance at beating England. So that's even like a mentality shift from, I would say, the players and from me as a fan. I actually felt like, granted, we're the home team, but I actually felt like this team has enough quality to play England. They're gonna have to play a great game to do it, and they did play a great game. England's just a better team. They're a great team, honestly, and we weren't able to beat them now. But I really am excited for Copa America in 2 years to see how we can stack up against some of the South American powerhouses. But overall, like, I think the average Mexican fan or the collective Mexican fan is optimistic. I feel like there's a sense of camaraderie and unity within the country. So I'm excited, and I think there could be good things for Mexico in World Cups to come. I mean, I feel like Spain, Portugal, even Morocco. Their coach said that Mexico will be a home team when they play in Morocco, given how supportive the Mexican fans were in Monterrey when they played the Netherlands. So I think even though they won't be a home team exactly, they're gonna be playing in like a Spanish speaking area. So I don't know. I feel like they'll have this will have bright days ahead of them. And on the like outside the soccer field, I really liked a lot of like the adjacent World Cup stories that came out of um, like different Mexico fans, and we talked a lot about them week one. But I like I saw a lot of videos after Azteca Mexico fans like high fiving England fans, like good game, like cheering. Maybe it's just my algorithm that gives me like the positives, but I saw a lot of that, a lot of England fans having like nothing but nice things to say about Mexico. I'm sure there was a little bit of gamemanship with like we mentioned the like Mexico fans going to the England hotel like at night, and they did the same for Ecuador. But it really seemed like the England fans had a really positive experience at Estadio Azteca with the fans. Also, credit to the England players. All the interviews I've seen, they were just very gracious with how they spoke about playing at Azteca against Mexico leading up to the game, and after the game, they were gracious winners from what I could tell. So all in all, like it was a good fought game, and yeah, I'm excited. Even though I'm
Yeah.
sad, I wish it went on one more game.
No, totally. And I think I completely echo what you're saying. I think for me, I think this is like a really, really young team, which I think if you kind of keep these players together, obviously Javier Aguirre stepped down. So looks like it's going to be Rafa Marquez,
Hmm.
probably, right? And
Yeah,
that's a guy that's done it
he's the
all,
assistant coach
right?
right now, so he's already there.
Yeah. And he's done it all like as a player. Sorry. So he's done everything as a player. He's going to be able to kind of help grow the team, the mentality. I almost think there's some teams that I think of. I think of it like when I think of the NBA, like the young teams that have to go through like a heartbreaking loss or go through, but like not early on. Like you felt what it feels like to win a game. You feel what it feels like to be in this knockout stage and compete toe to toe, like you said, with a powerhouse like England, and then get that heartbreak. But that almost helps build you up. So next time you're in that situation, like you're locked in. Like a goal is not going to make a difference. Like you're able to kind of surpass that mental side. You know what I mean? And I think there is like a nucleus of really, really young players, obviously with Gilberto Mora going up. And you have like kind of the changing of the guard from like the Santi Jimenez's and those like are a little bit older that are going to be kind of exiting off and allowing for all this new talent. So I think that's kind of the thoughts that a lot of people in Mexico are kind of divided on is like, do they keep them close in Liga MX? Do you have them go to Europe? How do you really develop the talent, to play together? Because I feel like you had a little bit of this young talent also maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, kind of growing up together with the Chicharito and all that stuff. So it's like, yeah, like how are you gonna do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you mentioned like the experience, and I think that goes a long way. I've observed a lot of teams that when they had like the golden generation or like they had like really good players, and then maybe a World Cup cycle later, they're a little bit older, and you feel like they're not quite as well, and they still perform well, or at least or even outperform previous experiences. I think there is an element of having been there before and doing it uh, like your second time around or third time around, as it might be. Because if you look at the teams that are left right now, there was a lot of energetic teams, a lot of teams that have had like decent runs, but it's kind of like the same old guard that really like sticks around later into the tournament. They and they kind of build into it. I feel like sometimes like the more experienced teams or the teams that are usually have a little bit more like soccer pedigree struggle a little bit in the rounds and look a little shaky, and then they kind of like settle in like, okay, we know what we're doing, we've been in these games before, okay, let's get to it, let's get it kind of like on autopilot and let's go.
Yeah, and I think there's also a little sense of pressure for Mexico playing at home, and I think that can't go unsaid, right? Like the players have so much pressure, and that's just another brutal thing because I think half the games played on the pitch, the other half is in your head, and all the players' heads, and like being able to mentally get through it. So, but I agree with what you said. I think that some of the best videos I've seen, like all this stuff, is just from the hosts in Mexico, and like how much people are just having too much fun, partying every single day, like the hospitality, which I think, as you're obviously Mexican. I've traveled to Mexico a million times. I think that's something that we can all say. Like the hospitality in Mexico is second to none, I would say, in terms of how welcoming people are. So I'm not surprised that that's how it went. And hopefully we'll see another Mexico World Cup here. And I know some people were saying maybe it's like Azteca's last World Cup, but I mean, who knows, man? I think the World Cup's only getting more expensive. So some of these countries with existing facilities are going to be able to kind of maybe more continuously host these World Cups. So fingers crossed there's another, maybe Canada, US, Mexico again in 10, 15 years, who knows?
Heard rumors that the US would want to bid for like 38 for like 2038. So
yeah,
you never know.
and honestly, the way it's gone, I think Mexico, there's no reason why it shouldn't be the same as it was this time. Because I think, yeah, like you said, super positive stuff. But now let's go to talk about a little bit less of a competitive game. Sadly, the U.S. also kind of crashed out today in the World Cup against Belgium, a Belgium side that, in my opinion, played their best game today that I've seen them play, the most put together. The coach decided to bench Doku, bench Lukaku, bench
De Bruyne.
De Bruyne, which when I started watching the game, like, what is going on here? But he kind of opted, like what we're talking about, opted for the young kids, like getting them going, and have the older guys more of the mentorship role on the bench. And obviously they came in and did what they did. What were your you watched the game? Kind of how are the thoughts on the U.S. obviously post Mexico? So I'm sure you're a little bit down already because Mexico had lost the day before.
Yeah, I was going into the game pretty optimistic, actually. I mean, there's been obviously drama with the like red card being rescinded from Florian Balogun. But I felt like the US in 2014 was playing with essentially like the golden generation for Belgium in the round of 16. And we had a good team, but like on paper, the team then probably didn't have the same resume as the players in the US now. And we're at home. And at that point, we went to extra time, what tied 1-1. And I was kind of thinking, okay, if we were able to go over 90 minutes with that team, then here at home, we're going to win. I actually thought we were going to potentially win comfortably, like by 2 goals, like maybe a 3-1 type of score. The only thing kind of like weighing on me a little bit was like the sense of like in going to the inconsistency that I don't know, there was kind of like a bad vibe considering that the red card for Balogun was removed, so he was going to be allowed to play. So that's the only thing that was kind of like weighing on me a little bit. But it was more like on the mentality of like, oh, this is not the way I want to win, because I genuinely felt that we had like a really good chance at winning, honestly. And that was not the case. We were not really in the game at all. But what was your sense going into the game and once you started watching it?
Yeah, I think going into the game, I felt super confident too. I thought Belgium had been really shaky for most of the tournament, honestly. Like Iran held them to 0 goals. They had another 0-0 draw before that. So I think they didn't kind of, and like you said, like they didn't get into it really, So I was thinking, all right, well, they're beatable. They're not going to be, they're not the lights out team that we talked about, the golden generation, all that stuff. And so I thought there was definitely confidence, but I think very quickly the game, I think Belgium came and just like hit him in the mouth right away. They pressed so hard, so hard. I hadn't seen Belgium press that hard this entire tournament, and I think that maybe caught the U.S. off guard. Talking a little bit about the red card, I think going into this week, I think they barely decided like late yesterday. I think that they were rescinding it, or he was going to be able to play. So you think about the game plan, like you're game planning for one thing, and then it changed, and now he's able to play. So you're game planning for something else. But I think hats off to Belgium, man. They played super well. I think they kept possession the entire time. A lot of mistakes in the back line. They were tough. Like The goalie mistake was really, I think that almost put the nail in the coffin, because you were down 2-1. You're like, okay, I can see the U.S. coming back and getting, they had a couple chances, didn't finish that last ball. But that goalie mistake was tough. And then the mistake from, I forgot who it was, but on the back line after that for the
Yeah.
Lukaku 4-1. So I think some of it was self-inflicted, which I think is even more frustrating than a game like the Mexico against England, where you're like, all right, we went tit for tat. They just beat us.
Mhm.
I'd rather lose that way than
Yeah.
kind of like shooting yourself in the foot. And that's kind of how I felt this one went.
Yeah, that was a disappointing thing. It was like the game goal at the end, it was just like very debilitating to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was frustrating. And to the pressure that Belgium put, like it was also like a mental pressure. Like we get a good goal from Tillman, and then right afterwards, Belgium scores again. Like you just feel like you could never really get into the game. I mentioned like the feeling where, like with Mexico, I felt like okay, they have fight to like stay in this game, and with the U.S., I just didn't feel like I saw how are they going to like actually get into the game, and it was yeah, it was
Yeah, I feel like
unfortunate.
they had a lot of options, like a lot of opportunities. It was just that final pass just wasn't there, or they would lose the ball in their own half, or like there was so many things. And Pulisic just looked off kind of the entire time.
This mentioning he
And
might
then
have been a little injured too.
yeah, it seems like maybe he tried to force it, maybe come off the bench, but then obviously he ended up hurting his ankle or whatever and had to be subbed out. But he didn't kind of look like he was. I mean, I would venture to say this entire World Cup didn't seem like he looked like himself, the more dominant player. It seemed like the other team was carrying him, which I think in the beginning I saw that as a pro, because usually we're like relying on Captain America, relying on him to get us out of everything, to score the goals, to set everything up. And then this time was the first time I was like, all right, cool. It seems like the team is kind of here. So now when he kind of gets back in shape or back ready to go, it's going to be crazy. Like they're going to
Yeah,
be super good. But it seemed like he just never really got there. Obviously re-aggravated an injury. And then now again, today got injured. So that was kind of tough to watch going forward. And I think that was kind of what was missing. And then the whole Balogun red card thing, I think that played a bigger role than we thought. And I'm sure there had to be a ton of pressure on him to perform. And that's just rough. Like to have to sit there and be like, all right, my country is expecting me to do something now because I'm able to play. Like I'm able to play because of potential extenuating circumstances. And so now I need to make the difference, to show like, yeah, this is worth it. And I think that's tough to put a kid in.
yeah, it's a terrible situation to be in. Yeah, you're a two-time MVP, so you go in like now. I definitely have to be the three-game MVP for this one,
Mm-hmm.
and it put the whole team in a like difficult situation. I feel like because it kind of questioned like some like integrity in a sense, and you never want to go into a circumstance like that where like okay, if we lose then it sucks because we lost, and if we won they're gonna say it's because we got special treatment, assuming like that they would have won, or even if Balogun would have scored or something. So it just like I think it was an unfair situation for Team USA. It's not something they necessarily ask for, um, which we see kind of similar things with like maybe Messi, for example. So it's something I guess certain teams are able to deal with a little bit better. Um, but yeah, it's unfortunate, and as a collective, CONCACAF, like this is kind of tends to be like the end of the road for us. I mean, Canada improved; they got the first World Cup point. They made it to the knockout stage and won a game. But now they're kind of just where the rest of the CONCACAF teams usually tend to end. So yeah, I wonder like what it's gonna take to have the whole collective like take a leap forward. It would have been nice to have one more CONCACAF team like in the quarterfinals. And I actually thought that would have been the US. I thought they were gonna be in the semis. So
Yeah, I think the thing was that this game was very uncharacteristic of how the other games went, and that's what I
mhm.
think was the most frustrating, probably for the fans, and it was for me too, because I'm like, I watched all the games they played; they never played like this. Like the backline was very dominant, the goalie was dominant, like everyone was in a much better place. They were able to play with and without the ball, which it seemed like they couldn't play with or without the ball when they were playing against Belgium, and I think they had played really well in the past, and that's what I think is the most frustrating. It's like the bright lights, it kind of, and it got away from them so early, and it just, like you said, never felt like they were gonna come back And after that free kick, I think if they had maybe 10, 15 minutes of that tie, it would have been a very different game.
Yeah.
But they immediately, like within seconds, ended up tying or going back and having a lead. I agree with you. I think though I thought that the U.S. played up until I saw the Ecuador Mexico game. I thought that was the best game a CONCACAF team. But I thought before that, I thought the U.S. was leaps and bounds playing better than Mexico, even though they had conceded and stuff like that. But I think just like they looked like a really, really solid, strong team. And then I saw the Ecuador Mexico game. I'm like, okay, Mexico just left them a lot. But yeah, left a lot to be desired. It's definitely a bummer. But I think if we're going to talk about the Pochettino effect I mean, who knows? I mean, he might stay, might not. I know the rumors that they offered him a contract before the World Cup, and he wanted to kind of sit on it and figure out if he was going to stay or not. I mean, TBD on that one. I would love to see some consistency, and that would be nice to kind of keep him around. I think similar to Mexico, I think they had a really rough, weird lead up to the World Cup where they were losing a lot of matches that they should have won or been more competitive in. Same thing with Mexico, I think. And then they kind of turned it on. When the World Cup started, playing at home with the fans, and that probably helped a lot. But I think that this is probably one of the better performances outside of like the Landon Donovan, Algeria performances where they ended up, winning knockout games and stuff like that. But I like the generation that we have right now. I think
absolutely
there's a good mix of homegrown players, European players. I think just kind of continuing, and I hope that they'll be able to continue and develop under Pochettino and obviously their respective teams, but have some sort of consistency in Team USA. And I think
MLS is getting really good, very competitive too. So
and that's what I was going to say too. I think, and that's kind of what we talked a little bit about Liga MX. Is like, I think now you're getting really close, and maybe really close is 4, 5, 6 years, but from being able to keep players at home. I think the MLS is developing into a really, really solid league with the help of a lot of European players and talented players coming to the US. But I think there's a handful of changes that if the MLS makes, which they're making next year, one of the big ones, which is, aligning with the world football calendar, that's going to start getting people to say, like, I'm not going to go play in Europe. I'm going to develop here, and then I think this World Cup also, as weird as it sounds, is going to be a huge opportunity for getting young kids that maybe never thought about soccer, all they thought about football, baseball, like putting that in their head, like, wait, I want to be like these guys, and really it comes down to building from the kids, and being able to develop them. And that's where I think Europe just is so further advanced. And it's because, they've been doing this forever, right? So it makes sense. But they can just develop talent at such a young age. So by the time they're 17, 18, they have all this crazy experience and they've been developed to play the right way and stuff like that. So it's definitely a positive, I think, too. Hate to see how it ended. I think I have a different taste, obviously, than you had with the Mexico game. You're like happy about it. I think this was a very huge disappointment on them ending that way. But I think there are a lot of positives, a lot of things that they'd come from it.
Absolutely. And the individual talent that the U.S. players have is really good. And that's one of the reasons I thought they were primed to go the furthest, especially once they got out of the group. I felt like their side of the bracket could have been a little bit more favorable until you got into like the Spain territory, which would have been the next game if they won. And even throughout the game, there was a lot of like 1v1 situations where the U.S. team just has a lot of great individual quality, especially like on the final third. They couldn't necessarily connect with each other, so they weren't quite in like the best sync. But yeah, I think if we go back in history, 1994, when the U.S. hosted the World Cup, we didn't have a pro soccer league. MLS didn't exist. That came out of that World Cup. And if the 94 World Cup brought us to MLS and kind of set the groundwork for where MLS is now, maybe 2026 World Cup is going to, like you said, inspire more young people to play soccer. And maybe that's what's going to bring us, like, deliver on a U.S. World Cup maybe in 3 cycles from now.
Yeah, and I'm excited with the fans, man. I'm so stoked, being able to talk about soccer with people that I've never talked about soccer with, and just like how many people are just so excited to be going to these games, and even outside of the U.S. games, I think there's a lot of people that are connecting with like their heritage and like, oh, well, my grandpa's from here, so I'm going to follow this team and that team, and a lot of people that don't have their own countries are like, all right, I'm going to pick a team, and I'm going to go with them, and I think that's been the most exciting part, just seeing people just so pumped to watch soccer, which I think I'm always really excited to watch it, but it's so nice to see, like, to be in a country where it's like, well, everyone around here is really, really excited. So I hope that also goes on. And that helps the MLS and like ticket sales and it's all a cycle, right? So like helps kind of continue growing that, and I really think it will, at least in San Diego. I don't know how it was in LA, but in San Diego, it just seems like everyone was just raving about like the teams and just like the vibes, I guess that we saw.
Absolutely, I think it's definitely broken through in to a lot more people. I've had multiple people, and even one person today, um, tell me at work, I feel like this is the first World Cup where I really get into it, or like I really like am watching games, and like I don't watch any soccer. So I definitely think that that's happening, and it also reminds me today. It was very sweet. A lot of my coworkers and people I know have just been like kind of like reaching out, sending their condolences, which has just been really nice. So to all those people in that network and just out and about for reaching out, thank you. I appreciate you.
No, totally. And I think, and the funny part is like we joke about, FIFA and stuff like that, but like that maybe that was a move. We talk about the US, North America being one of the biggest markets that are kind of not completely untapped, but they have a lot of potential, and now they've brought it and they've kind of shown that if you bring it here, like people are going to watch, people are going to visit, people are going to do all this stuff. Granted, there's been a million, controversies and stuff, but I'm very excited about what's left for U.S. soccer, for North American soccer in general. So I'm really pumped. But we'll wrap that one up, and then we'll talk about the last game. Some positive news, obviously, for me.
Yeah.
But I was watching the U.S. Belgium game, maybe in a little bit of a different light, because I was excited for obviously for the U.S., but also just trying to see like who the next opponent was for Spain. So obviously, Spain won 1-0. Very stressful game for me, but won it with like a 91st minute goal with Mikel Merino. Crazy game, at least in my opinion. Two powerhouses. I was definitely very worried going into it, because this is kind of the point in the tournament, like we talked about a little bit before, where every team is kind of a powerhouse. And so it's like, if you don't face Portugal, you face France or Morocco or Belgium, or like there's just all that's left is quality, So every game now, it's where we talk about a little bit of luck, a little bit of, can you kind of grind some wins out? They went scoreless still, so
Yeah.
kind of what we talked about, still a little bit scary. Like I'm a little
5
worried
games,
about
no goals conceded. That's
six
amazing.
now.
Oh, it's 6.
Yeah, because they had, it was 3, or I think that was the record. I think it was
Okay.
6. So I don't know, but anyways, they haven't been scored on the entire World Cup,
Wow.
which maybe you're right. Maybe it's 5. And so I think they broke the record for most, or for going X amount of games without being scored on.
That's
But that's also
amazing.
a little scary. When Simon had a little bit more work today, I think he had like 2 or 3 shots that he had to block. Some kind of crazy tip matches. And we had a couple of misses up pretty early on that I think would have changed the matchup entirely. And I think was really frustrating towards the end, when I'm like, wait, we could be up 1-2-0, 2-1. And we're not. And now we got to go to extra time, and that's stressful. And then go to penalties, and I don't know that I can watch that. But I'm really excited. I think they played really well. I think this was one of the big opponents that
Yeah,
we were
absolutely.
worried about, and showed the quality. So I'm excited. Obviously, we have Belgium next. I feel much better now, I think, than I felt last week. Now seeing like a really solid team. Austria was a good team, but I think Portugal is one of the favorites. They're number 5 ranked. So being able to, I'm not gonna say handedly win it, but like it felt stressful to me. But looking back now, it was comfortable. It wasn't like crazy. I think that we did what we needed to do and grinded out a win. So I'm excited.
Yeah, Spain's really building into the World Cup. I will admit, like starting with the Cabo Verde tie, and then we ended up seeing Cabo Verde's
Yeah.
a force to be reckoned with. So it's not.
Yeah, Spain was the first casualty to let everyone know.
Yeah, essentially. But yeah, it was a really even match. I guess Spain was better. I think there was periods where each team was better at different times. I thought there's
Mhm.
times where the Portuguese midfield was better than Spain, but Diego Costa had like the really cool like double save,
Yeah.
which is really cool. And yeah, but Spain, I think the scoreline would maybe show it like a 1-0 in like the round of 16, but this was a really tough game. And honestly, right now, I think Spain would be the only team that can really potentially beat France.
Yeah, I what I liked about the team or about the game was that they had to grind it out. Like they had to suffer the entire game, and there was some opportunities, like I said, that were missed. There were so many crosses in that just no one was there, and like if you just had a body there, just there were so many tap ins that were just missed, and maybe that's where we struggle without having that like traditional number nine, there. But I'm glad that they could kind of grind this out and with a quality, really really good quality team that can score at any moment. I think Portugal. I think we talked about it, but Portugal left a lot to be desired. I think they have way more quality than they showed. Um, People can say it's that maybe Ronaldo shouldn't be starting. We talked about kind of that a little bit already, but I think they probably had a little bit left that they kind of just didn't come together.
Yeah.
It's weird because Roberto Martinez was the coach of Belgium when they had their golden generation, and now they're never able to kind of solidify. And now Roberto Martinez is the coach of this World Cup team, which is arguably, when you just go like down the list, probably the most talented Portuguese team altogether that I've seen, and kind of not able to really break through. And it seemed like they didn't have a lot of consistency. Like you said, there was points where you're like, whoa, this midfield is crazy. And then you're like, wait, okay, they just gave the ball up. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of seemed very disjointed, which is, I mean, I would think at the end of the day is maybe a little bit of the tactics, the familiarity. And I think Roberto Martinez stepped down at the end of the match too. So there'll be a new coach who knows who it'll be. But I'm happy about that. And the grind out win. Now we got Belgium next. So that'll be another tough match because they're super fast. And so we're gonna have to stay really consistent. But I'm still really scared about what we talked about, not having being scored on. As great as it sounds it sounds like really weird to say. Like I kind of want them to be scored on, not in a way of going down, but in a way of like someone tying. Just to see like, all right, feel it, like it's gonna happen. So like feel it, react. How are you gonna do and like keep going? To
It,
avoid something like what happened.
it didn't work out for Mexico too well, I'll tell you that.
And that's the scary part. But like you said, like had that second goal with Jude Bellingham not happened, that might have been a different match.
Yeah.
Like if it's a 1-1, you're playing a totally different game than a 2-1 or 2-0 than 2-1, right? And that's what I'm worried about. You'd think that there's like people. A lot of this team won the Euros. They went to the Nations League their final, so they have a lot of that kind of mental, stuff. Like they played in big games, but you never know until someone hits you in the mouth what it feels like, especially in this stage. And the further you go, the more pressure you have. So if you're playing, like, I think if you're playing a France or even the Portugal and you're going down 1-0, like that, you're in a way different game plan, way different place than maybe going down 1-0 with a smaller team or not, in a knockout stage.
I think Spain, they're giants of the game, and they're the team. They have the quality, and they have the team that if they get punched in the face, they're going to like wake up, like, and we'll see a Spain that we haven't quite seen yet. They definitely have the ability to do it under pressure for sure, and I think this would be, they're gonna. I see them beating Belgium and potentially still having a pretty good run. But we were talking about the Portugal coach, Roberto was Martinez. And it reminds me of like the statistic that no World Cup team has won without a coach from the same country. So I actually wanted to do a quick rundown of the remaining teams, which teams still, based on that metric, could still win the World Cup. Because I know not all of them are from the.
No, England's for sure one of the big ones that I can think of right off the top of my head, right?
So that would mean England's out. Then
France is good. Spain's good.
Yeah.
Morocco, I'm not sure.
Let me see. Morocco coach.
Yeah. Because I know he coached the like inferior categories before. Belgium, I don't think Belgium's either.
He's Belgian Moroccan, so Morocco's still in it. It looks like.
Okay.
Belgian Moroccan, and then what was the other one we were looking at? Colombia coach, maybe.
Belgium coach also, because I think it was Rudy Garcia from Belgium, and I don't think he's
okay. So Colombian is Argentinian.
Okay.
Rudy Garcia is French, if I remember correctly, which the name would not suggest. Yeah, he's French, so that one's out too. We said Egypt coach. Let's see.
Yeah, because then Argentina for sure is Argentinian.
The Egypt coach. Yeah, he's Egyptian. Is that all? I mean, Switzerland. We gotta check with Switzerland. I don't think the Swiss coach is.
Yeah,
is
it's crazy
Swiss.
because I feel like you never realize how many people have coaches of a different country until you start looking it up.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting because I think someone asked Pochettino, like, "Oh, do you feel like a little bit American?" He was like, "No, I'm 200% Argentinian." Like, he's like, "I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm Argentinian to the death," and that's kind of an interesting thought. Like, how do you coach this team? Do you coach them as like kind of a club team where you're just you're not bought in as much as you could be if you were American, right? So yeah, that's an interesting kind of thought.
Yeah, and that note, I don't think he's staying, but yeah, I think you kind of do treat it like a club team. Like, all right, this is like the team I have, and then like the non-starters are like your academy players essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Going back to the coaches really quick though, is Norway? Did we say?
I think Norway is just based off his celebrations when they win.
Okay, yeah, true.
He seems like he was very Norwegian.
Yeah. Let's see.
And they also had a massive win against Brazil. That was crazy.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't say an upset because Norway's a very solid team, but it was definitely a smaller team really coming up and showing the big dogs what's up.
Haaland is like that guy's an animal. Like it doesn't look like he's even trying. That second goal,
when he went for that header, he just was bullying.
Yeah, he was basically like, "That's mine," and it's going in the goal. And then his second shot too. Yeah, there was a mistake on the defense, but he just shot that with so much power, and it really just looks like he's not even tired at the end of the game.
Yeah, he didn't really even walk too much into it. Like he just kind of like stepped in, boom. And I was like, oh, okay, there you go. And that one was just more perfect placement too. Like that was the one spot that you could do it.
That's insane. I guess so. Basically, the power teams, like the favorites, are still in it. Then, so we have, for the coaches, Spain can win, France can win, Argentina can win, Norway can win, Switzerland could win, and Egypt could win.
Yeah, so it's just who's left? It's just Colombia, and then Belgium, right?
And England, and
England, yeah, that don't have the coaches. And like you said, and I'm sure listeners know, no team's ever won, right, without a country or without a coach of their own nationality of the team, right?
Yeah, England's looking good though, so they might be the ones to break it.
Yeah, and who does England play next match?
They're playing Norway.
Okay. So that'll be a really big test for them, and so they can see what's going to happen there. And then we still have 2 more matches left in the round of 16, which is Argentina, or is just one?
Yeah, no, it's 2. Tomorrow we have Argentina and Egypt, and Colombia, Switzerland.
Okay, cool. And then the winners will play each other there. I'm really hoping for a Colombia, Argentina, because that, I think, it's not Copa America. Which was the South America one?
Yeah, it's Copa America. Yeah.
Okay, they were in the final then, right?
Yeah, rematch of the Copa America.
Yeah, and that was I remember watching that game. That was a crazy game. That kind of just, like, went to it was extra time, right? And it was a last minute goal.
It was an intense one. Even like
very
from
physical
fan perspective. Yeah, and it would guarantee a South American semifinal, which would be nice.
Yeah, and so I'm excited for that. I think that's going to be the biggest test so far. For Argentina, because obviously against Cabo Verde, they looked like they were going to get beat in a lot of parts of it, and I'm excited to see what happens there. But yeah, I think that's all we got. Mario, you got anything else for us?
No, I'm sad Mexico's out. I'm sad that the U.S. is out, but yeah, it's okay.
Happy for soccer.
There we go.
For world football, right? There you go. I'm starting to get bummed out also because now that there's less and less games every day, so it lets you know that the World Cup's over soon. But I'm very excited. Stick with us. We have another week, almost 2 weeks left, and then we got the final. So we'll continue breaking down the games and talking about our favorite teams and whoever's left. I don't know if Mario's going to pick a new team and just kind of root with them the rest of the way. But I'm still excited for a lot of really competitive, really good matches to come.
I have a few adopted ones, Morocco being one of them.
There you go. Yeah, you have your jersey. That's true. Yeah,
I do.
Awesome. There you go. So you can pick them, and they have really good matches coming up. So stick with us. And yeah, as always, thanks for listening to us. Follow us on X @_pitch report, and we'll post the last video or the last podcast that we totally didn't do. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.